Hi, Christian.
Pleasure to be here.
How are you? And tell me, please, where are you from United States, and what do you do in Russia?
Well, I don't know how many people know I'm actually here, so this is going to be a surprise to them. But I would say recently I'm from LA, but I've been spending some time in Vegas, spent some time in Colorado, spent some time in Texas, spent some time in Miami, which apparently Russian people love. And did you ask me why I'm in Russia?
Yeah, what do you do here?
It's a fascinating story, by the way. So we have a lot of people in the United States who are in Hollywood. A lot of, I think, mainly Jewish people from Russia who went there. And their portrayal of Russia in our movies is very fascinating because it's, as an American, when I see a Hollywood movie, right, Russians are always like there's some big scary guy called like Dmitry,
exactly.
Davai, you know, or like some like crazy beautiful woman who will kill you, or like a babushka, or like bears on unicycles. So you know, as an American, we don't.
Have you
really,
met a bear when you
like
when
I
you
am
was
a bear.
on the streets of Moscow?
I am a bear.
Ah, okay. So they
No,
are talking
I
about you.
haven't,
I guess they were talking about you.
I haven't though. That's just such a disappointment. Damn it.
Okay.
But actually, this was fascinating. This is I would give credit to the Russian administration, because I was in Prague in 2018 when the World Cup was happening, the football World Cup. It's soccer for people back in the States. And I remember I was sitting in my hotel and I saw this video of the football World Cup, and I didn't know anything about, I don't really care about this stuff. And it was in a beautiful city, beautiful atmosphere, lovely people, everybody's happy. And I was like, where is this happening? I thought maybe it's like Italy, maybe somewhere in Europe, and it was like Moscow. So I was like, what? This is not the Moscow I see in the movies where it's like always depressing and Soviet, everybody like freezing. So that really, kicked off my interest, because I was like, hold on a second, this YouTube video doesn't align with what the movies have told me. Because if you asked me, right, do you want to go to Russia? I'd be like, are you crazy? Why would I go to like a freezing place where there's, everybody's drunk and wants to kill you, and then you see there's a bunch of happy people just enjoying and having fun. So I'm a very curious person, and that video triggered my curiosity, and I decided, like, you know what, let me actually go to Russia and see what it's like. That's why I'm here.
So what's your the most big impressions about Russia, and what can you say about Russia at all compared to some other countries, and at all, and maybe in some details?
All right, so quick background. I have spent a lot of my life traveling around the world with my family. We lived in Europe, Scandinavia, South America, one or two places in North Africa, South Asia, and of course the States. And right now, I would say, because I lived in Paris for some time, Rome for some time, spent some time in Berlin, the UK, spent some time in Oslo, Norway, and spent a lot of time all around the States, like the West Coast, East Coast, South, Midwest, not so much the North. You guys are like way cleaner. Like it's just shocking to me. Like especially from Los Angeles. Like if you go to like the nice areas like Bel Air or like Malibu or something, it's pretty fancy, pretty nice. But just the level of chaos is crazy. And now you come here, and I'm an absolute foreigner, right? Like I came to the St. Petersburg. I came to Moscow. God, you guys are like crazy clean and organized. No homeless people. That shocked me, because as an American, it's sad, man. Like this is something that we just used to, just people, homeless people, just, they got problems, like mentally sometimes they've got, issues. You guys don't have that. You do have drunks in St. Petersburg who pass out in like sub-freezing temperatures on the street, and it's just impressive that they just kind of pass out and lie there in sub-freezing temperatures. Not a lot, but it's just impressive. They do that in like a t-shirt and a jacket. It's frankly impressive how they can just sleep it off. But that was the number one most important thing, because of my upbringing. So I'm from a military diplomat family. So we've lived in so many countries. You know, we spent time in Europe before 2015, and after 2015, there's a huge difference. So when I moved to the States, it wasn't as bad in some of the areas, like LA, New York, definitely. I can say even Denver. Now it's pretty bad. But as a normal human being, when you're walking around, right, you don't really expect like just homeless people everywhere, filth everywhere. You kind of feel unsafe because, you know, like that's not normal. So Russia for me is like really nice, like what I expected most European cities to be. But yeah, that's my number one thing. Also, everybody's like, all right, I won't lie. St. Petersburg people dress very, very terribly. You have very badly dressed people in St. Petersburg. Oh yeah, they remind me of LA. Beautiful girls dress like absolute dash, like absolute, like trash. It's like, what is wrong with you? Moscow, amazing. Everybody's dressed up super well. And what else can I say? Oh, you guys are like really hospitable and warm. Like this is something we've never ever seen in, like, I haven't seen in any American movie. Because I remember the first time I came to Moscow, there were a couple of like burly Russian dudes who were like, you know, they couldn't really speak much English, and my Russian was pretty ochin plokha, which still is very bad. And they were like, where are you from? After like 5 minutes, they said, where are you from? And I was like, I'm from California. And I was expecting like, oh, and they were like, oh, you're from California, come have shots with us. And they literally bought me shots all night, wouldn't let me buy them a drink. And this is not just one-off. I've seen this like many times. People here are like normal, like just happy, just living their life, just normal people. You know, nobody's trying to gut you with an AK-47. Like it's shocking. It's like a culture shock. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How many cities have you visited?
Oh damn. I've been to Moscow. I've been to St. Petersburg. I've been to Novosibirsk in Siberia. Yeah, I actually met like Siberian people that I met have been like absolutely fantastic, and like they look very Russian. They've got that blonde, blue-eyed look, just straight. Even the cats in Siberia have blue eyes. It's hilarious. I spent some time there.
Cats are Russian.
Yeah, the cats are like super Russian. The dogs, the cats, the horses have gray eyes. It's insane. Sochi, gorgeous place. Yeah, I think right now that's about it. I would like to go more, but you have like the largest country in the world by Russia. I think is the biggest country in the world. It's so huge.
Yes, it is.
That if I have to plan where to go, I have to literally like make a multi-month itinerary. Like I have to go to the east, I have to go to the north. So yeah.
What can you say, like entrepreneur, about Russian business? Have you explored it? What can you say? For example, have you seen some? What can you say about service at restaurants? Or maybe have you view, because my business is real estate, and
Right.
I'm interested. What do you think about real estate? Have you seen something, some buildings, some new projects, and what do you think about it?
I think, so just to give you a bit of a background, right? I'm kind of a unique individual. I'm a musician, I sing, and I'm in finance. I'm an entrepreneur. So just being absolutely honest here, I don't really care who I offend. Artistic people tend to be pretty low IQ. I'm not saying everybody, but the vast majority. It just comes hand in hand. Like you have to be somewhat dumb to be artistic, by the present day standards, obviously. And financial people or people who are used to entrepreneur, they're not really that imaginative or artistic. So it's completely different worlds. Because I'm both of them, I've always had a hard time, connecting them together. Because I can't really talk about music or art with the financial people unless it's an investment. And obviously, I'm not going to talk about financial stuff with some dude in a studio. Right.
So
With Russia.
you mean that it would be better for for Russian entrepreneurs to be a bit more artistic
No,
and
no,
more
no.
educated?
No, no, no. It's not what is better. It's just the nature of the thing. People uh, who have an interest in finance and entrepreneurship are not really interested in, art. Because art is basically a very high risk. From a financial standpoint, I would define art as a very low probability, very high risk gamble. And from the artistic standpoint, I would define finance is soul bleedingly dry. So these are two different worlds. I'm not trying to bring them together. It's fine. So because I've been in both worlds, I'm going to answer the financial part. So what I've observed in Russia, and this is not just Russia because I've traveled around the world, I've seen the economy of like Canada, Mexico, UK, France, Germany, Russia, India, China. Russia is in an interesting place right now that there's a lot of opportunities here for people here. I've been here during the last 2 years. People are living their normal lives. They're doing fine. And a lot of the stuff that you guys were importing, now you're developing in-house. So financially, that's a fantastic opportunity. Secondly, I firmly believe, not just about Russia, I believe in every country, like people should invest in their own country first and foremost. Like that's your people, that's your land, that's your culture. So now is a great time because Russians, they are definitely interested in investing in Russia. And real estate wise, I've seen some gorgeous infrastructure in Moscow, in St. Petersburg, and even in some other city, even Novosibirsk. It's not something like, it's like a youngish city for me. Like there's a lot of potential there. If you take a city like Sochi, which is, I hosted the 2012 Winter Olympics, right? So that's a gorgeous city because you've got the sea and then you've got the mountains like a 45, 50-minute drive from the sea. So you can ski and swim in the same day. It's insane. I've seen some projects because I recently went to Dubai as well. I have an interest in hotels. I have an interest in beautiful places. And I think this is a place that is absolutely fantastic for investors who can actually like see the long-term goal. Because this is a growing city. If you take Moscow, right, everybody's now looking towards Moscow because, Americans, we are coming here. Some Europeans are coming here, British, Canadian, Australians. And we see like, hey, it's not scary. Nobody's going to run away with your stuff. You can do stuff here. You can do business here. St. Petersburg, gorgeous city, just beautiful, just a very pretty city. I used to think Prague was pretty, and it is. But St. Petersburg is like amazing.
It's your favorite in Russia?
It's just gorgeous.
Yeah.
I would say it's one of my top, yeah, definitely. It's just beautiful. And beautiful people as well. And then Sochi is definitely like, nobody thinks of Russia having like a mild winter. And I think in Sochi, you guys have like a very mild winter. And the summer is like, it's pretty much like somewhat of a Miami kind of vibe, somewhat, I would say. LA, I wouldn't say that because in the summer, our Pacific is cold, so we don't really swim. You can surf, yeah, but the Pacific is cold. So you go to the beach, you surf a little bit. Swimming, not really.
What do you think about Sochi, the potential of Sochi as a worldwide resort?
I think it's huge.
Is it possible?
No, it's huge. It's not just possible, it's inevitable. Because, so I've been to the French Riviera, I've been to the Italian Riviera, the Turkish people are developing the Turkish Riviera, and I would call Sochi and these kind of places like the Russian Riviera. The potential is huge, not just because of the fact that I said you have the mountain and the sea next to each other, but when I visited, I also observed you have something that is really attractive to a vast majority of travelers in that Russia is basically a European Asian country. So you have the European organization, work ethic, everything works, roads are nice, people are nice, the service is nice. You go to somewhere, they're professional, they talk professionally, which is what you want on vacation. You just want to go somewhere and just everything works. You talk to somebody, they talk to you professionally. So because it's part of Russia and you Russians have that European culture, it's very nice to come to the city or Moscow or St. Petersburg and, experience that. You won't have the same experience in places like Mexico or Brazil, which has its own kind of vibe, very fun, lovely places. But the people and the culture makes a huge difference, especially when it comes to business and hospitality.
So when you are in Russia, you don't feel a big difference in
No.
cultural way.
No. I would say, if we take the example of, let's say, Sochi, are there any other cities like this in Russia?
All those cities which are situated on a Black Sea shore.
Black Sea shore.
Yes.
Okay, so
but Sochi
right.
is the most developed right now because it was an Olympic city.
I would say this: if I would spend time in the Black Sea shore of Russia, the level of service that I receive and the level of experiences and just the overall infrastructure and people that I interact with are pretty much similar to what I would receive on the French Riviera or the Italian Riviera. Of course, these places are very new, so they're just developing. Maybe these are what the Italian Riviera and French Riviera was in like the 50s or the 60s. But the major point is, when you visit these parts of Russia, the service level, the culture is just similar. It's just very nice. Like when you go to the Italian Riviera, or French Riviera, you're not worried about stuff. You're like, I go to the hotel, it's gonna be beautiful. I ask for some service, it's gonna happen. There's gonna be a minimum level of professionalism. Same here. So this is literally like a hidden gem as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
What you can say about Russian restaurants and food and service there?
I'm a pretty terrible person to ask about food.
Yeah,
My favorite food is like a triple bacon double cheeseburger. So I would say the service is excellent. That's one thing that anybody who's being honest, in the States, we don't really have good service in an average restaurant. Okay, if you have a very high-end Michelin star restaurant, you got like good service. But our servers aren't really happy. They're not really satisfied with what they're doing. So that's number one. If you think you're a rock star, but you're serving pancakes, you're going to be frustrated. You're not going to give your best service. Secondly, they're not really taught anything like in America. And this is a pet peeve of mine. It could be just mine, that the servers come to you in the middle of your meal while you're in the middle of chewing something and your mouth is full to ask, how is everything? Like, what the hell am I supposed to say? I'm eating.
yeah. I don't like it too,
Yeah,
actually.
I think
It's a stupid script for the waiters.
I think they do it because if you complain in the United States about a meal, it has to be given to you for free. That would make sense to me, but the way I was raised and most people are raised, we don't really do that. If we go to your restaurant and you make a meal that is so-so, we're not going to moan about it. Like most of us are not going to moan about it. We're going to be like, you know what, it's fine, whatever, let's just eat, pay and go. But it's very irritating. And the expectation, we have a very bad problem with like tipping culture in America. It's literally like there's arguments on all sides. People who work, they definitely depend on the tips. People who hire them, they depend on the tips to not pay them a wage. But the thing is, both of them end up blaming the customer. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm just coming here to have a meal. I'm not interested in your life story. Just let me have my meal in peace if you're good. Because in France, Russia, Italy, Germany, any normal country, I would say this, definitely. Even in places like India, South Africa, Brazil, nobody expects a tip. And these are really poor people. These are not like, oh, I'm so poor, I'm working at Denny's, but I have my iPhone and I'm posting selfies on Instagram, driving my leased car. Like, these are actually freaking poor people. You only give a tip when the service is exemplary. So we don't have that. Russian service, I've noticed, on average, it's not going to be the warmest, but they're pretty efficient. If you can speak the language, it's great. If you don't speak the language, try to communicate.
Yeah.
But if you go to like nice restaurants, it's like fantastic.
Yeah.
They know what to do. They don't interrupt you. They're very observant of what you need. If you don't need anything, they'll stay away. Like they make the experience nicer. So you feel like, all right, let me just give them a tip. Yeah, and it's not expected. That's the best thing. Like if you don't expect something, you'll get it most of the time. If you have this, like, if you're hovering over my shoulder every 5 minutes, smiling your fake smile at me, just as a normal human being, I'd be like, what do you want, man? Get off my back. Most people will pay them a tip so that they get off their back. I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna pay you. You've been bugging me. So, yeah. You guys have good service, world
Yeah,
class.
okay. And what about real estate? What can you say? For example, uh, I would ask two questions. What do you think about Russian architecture in Moscow and St. Petersburg? It's like like a cultural question. And the second, have you seen some new projects? What do you think about them? And is it how could it be compared with something you saw in other places in the world?
Okay. So your first question is what I think of the architecture of Moscow and St. Petersburg.
Yes, historical
Historical.
architecture.
It's fantastic, and I am a definite believer in history. So a lot of people these days, I don't know, there's like a global, most countries sense of we go through high school and we don't really understand how old civilizations are. For example, Russia is 1,000 year plus old civilization. Egypt like 6,000 years. India is like what 3,500 years. America itself is like 1492 was Columbus discovered it, and it's been like 500 plus years. And Americans like we're young. Yeah, we're young, but not that young. So from that context, Moscow has some fantastic architecture, especially the metro station. They're literally like pieces of art. It doesn't look like a metro station, it looks like a cathedral or some kind of palace in some of these. I've never seen this in any other country. I'm sure some have it. So, St. Petersburg, I can definitely say, I can see this effect of more 17th, 18th century, 19th century modern architecture. The churches are gorgeous, amazing. Like, and the Orthodox Christian churches, so they have their own style, which I would say is a mix of Byzantine and European style. They're amazing, and both the cities have very unique architecture. This is a part of Europe, and I would say Eurasia that is unique that you won't really see anywhere else in Europe or Asia. So I have a very favorable impression of the architecture on these two cities, and they're historic cities. I mean, the Russian Empire was pretty huge. So, yeah.
What can you say about new projects in real estate? Have you seen something?
I've seen some projects. I've seen some projects in St. Petersburg, which is, like I said, a very, very gorgeous place. I've seen some projects in Moscow, which are very modern. More interesting projects I've seen are in the Russian Riviera, like Sochi would be a good example. I've seen some great hotels being built, seen some great resorts being built, and it just makes sense. If any of your viewers have gone to places like Dubai or maybe Thailand or any place that has a very attractive climate to get people there. So Sochi and all its area, like you said, the Russian Riviera, all these cities have places like this. And I've seen some just absolutely fantastic projects being built, grand, architecturally, somewhat modern, some are more classic style. Here's where my bias would come in. I will always prefer classical styling that is grand over modern. But if it's like ultra modern, futuristic, I would be okay with that too.
Would you recommend to foreigners to invest to Russia right now?
I mean, if they can, definitely, I would say, because this is a unique opportunity because Russia is doing its own thing in the States, we would say. Russia is doing its own thing. And because of whatever has happened, there's a new financial order being built, like the BRICS nations.
Yes.
And hopefully we normalize our relationship with Russia as well. That would be great. But that shouldn't stop multiple decentralized ways of doing business. So, from that perspective, it's very attractive because the work ethic is pretty much European, which is professional. So, Germany, Sweden, America, Russia, it's like you know who you're getting in business with, what you can expect, vis a vis deadlines, vis a vis agreements. Secondly, following all the laws and regulations, if you're doing everything fine, I think there's enough protections for you as an individual investor that you won't get into any complications. And thirdly, the opportunities are insanely good right now because everybody is making the same mistake, whether it's in finance, in real estate, or in life. Everybody buys things when they are sky high, whether it's Nvidia, Apple, blah, blah, like once Tesla, once it hits like this sky high valuation, everybody starts noticing. They buy at the top, it crashes, they lose money, and they get depressed. But everybody who's successful knows that you have to buy when everything is at the bottom, nothing is happening, because that is when you will make real money. You're not going to make money if something went from like $1 to $1,000 and you bought it $1,000 and you hope it'll go to 10,000. Maybe it will in 20 years. But if you buy it 1,000 and crashes to 100, you just lost like $900. Why didn't you pay attention when it was $1? But if it crashes and you buy it 100, then it might go to 10,000. Guess what? Now you made 100 times. Just as a very basic example, not obviously, it's not like financial advice or anything, but this is just common sense. But we say in English, common sense is not so common. So,
well, actually, the Russian market, fund market, is on the on the bottom right now. And do you recommend to invest it because of international situation? And so you mean that it's the best time to invest to Russian market?
If I was Russian, I would definitely invest. This is literally when you put money in.
And you shouldn't find something abroad?
It's about opportunity. If you look at the Russian market versus the global markets, if the global markets are doing what they've been doing for the last 10, 15 years, the Russian markets were doing the same thing, then they went down, and now they're down. You cannot find that opportunity in other places.
Yeah.
And Russia is not like... So if we were to think of Russia in terms of just a country, like finance and all this, it's about money, but let's cut to the basics. It's about production, resources, the land, the people. Russia is not a country that doesn't do anything. Russia is the biggest exporter of so many very vital things, whether it's energy, it's food, it's so many things. So this is a country that's not only an exporter, but it also is self-sufficient. So it's not like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a speculative opportunity. You're literally investing in a country that if tomorrow they decided like, we don't need to do any imports, I think they would be fine with almost everything. Very few countries can say that. Maybe China can say that. We can say that. Canada maybe can say that. Australia can say that. But it's very few countries that have that kind of resources, people, and land mass. So if I was Russian, I would pick historically well-performing stocks, I guess. And I would see, this is a good time to get in. Yeah, definitely. This is where fortunes are made. This is the time.
What would you recommend to Russian entrepreneurs about marketing, or maybe some entrepreneur behavior which you saw in United States, or and you can recommend to our entrepreneurs how to act more effective, what to pay attention for, and what to focus on, as you think?
This is a good question, and I'm going to answer it in a couple of parts.
Yeah, of course.
So when we talk about nations, and right now we're talking about Russia. So I would say Russia, Belarus, Slavic nations in general, these are Slavic nations. So there is a huge part of a culture. Like the way Germans think is not the way Americans think, is not the way Russians think, is not the way the Chinese think. So before I give any advice to Russian entrepreneurs, I would have to be completely honest about how much do I understand Slavic culture. And I would say very basic. I understand it very basic. Like a lot of the strategies that work in America today, or even in the 50s or the 40s, would probably not translate well here just because, like 500 years old, 1,000 plus years old. If you go to like place like India, there's like 3,500 years old. China, 4,000 years old. It doesn't just copy, paste, translate. But one thing I could definitely say is, and this applies everywhere. Every single country has its way of doing things. If I'm being absolutely honest, the United States of America right now and for some time has been the best place for entrepreneurs. Because not only do you get the opportunity to try what you want, but if you can put in the work and get the results, you will attract the kind of people who can really blow you up.
Investors.
Investors,
Yeah.
Series A, Series B funding. I'll take the example of France. France is very structured because France, again, is a very old, I would say, kingdom, country, culture. In France, everything is very structured. Now, is it harder to be an entrepreneur in France without existing connections? Yes. Is it impossible? No. But as a man and somebody with common sense, I don't work on what is possible, I work on probabilities. So in Russia, I would say from what basic I've observed in the culture, you need to really go after the opportunity that you think exists, talk to the people who can help you with it, and you might have to talk to 10, 20, 100 people. But even here, I've noticed in the United States, if you will get out of 10 people, you'll get maybe 3 or 4 people interested. In Russia, it might be 1 or 2. But you have to talk to these people. You have to make these moves. You have to get in touch with the right people in your field of entrepreneurship. And one of them will definitely help you or set you in the right direction. So Russia has that. I would say that. Never give up.
You mean relations with investors? Or?
Relations with investors or opportunities, or just even in sales. Like you have to. It's a more difficult market because the culture is more conservative, but it's not impossible. What I've seen here is, and this is from seeing entrepreneurs and just people in general, they give up too early because they get too emotional about it. If you're an entrepreneur
in sales, entrepreneurship, or business, you can't be emotional about these things. An entrepreneur is someone who's trying to be financially independent. Every transaction or interaction they have with someone, it's a financial transaction. Every handshake you make, every dinner you make, there has to be a goal which inevitably includes some financial exchange or some value being. So in the States, we understand, if someone says no, you don't take it personally. If someone says yes, they're not your best friend. They're saying no because they're not financially interested. They're saying yes, not because they like you, but because maybe they like you and they see some money being made. So if Russian entrepreneurs understand this, they take their emotions away from their business approaches, they'll go a lot farther. I've noticed this. This is one thing holding them back. So to resume, first is to have relations and more relations.
Try.
So it's some kind of successful thing that you have to build relations with people.
You can't give up.
Yes. Second, don't give up in any way.
Don't be emotional.
And don't be emotional. And what else you said?
I would say the third thing that is important after building the relations and not being emotional is the most crucial one. Give yourself a specific timeline to see whether your idea works or doesn't.
Yeah.
It could be 1 year, it could be 3, it could be 5, maximum 10 years. And your payout better be insanely huge. Because the worst thing entrepreneurs around the world do, and definitely this is something that Russian entrepreneurs can also look at. When you get too emotionally involved in an idea that you had, you put your blood, sweat, tears, and time in it, you don't want to let go. Let's suppose you spent 3 years of your life pushing this idea that you had, but it's just not working out, or it's not working out enough.
Yeah.
You need to be able to say, you know what? I tried. It's not the right way to do it. It's not working out. Let me stop, pivot to something else, or get back in the job market. From a valuation perspective, here's my Yes, go ahead.
Will it be giving up or not?
No, it would be, you have to understand what your strengths are.
Yeah.
If you say today that you want to be a ballerina, you might have the most motivation and passion in the world.
I can try.
Yeah. I'm not saying you can't, but it would be idiotic. After 3 years, you're like, you know what? I'm like a tall, like masculine looking dude. Nobody's hiring me as the chief ballerina of the Black Swan. I'd be like, yeah, dude, like they're telling you it's not gonna work. So so that's what I'm saying. People make that mistake. And I'm gonna expand on this just a little bit more. This is very crucial. A lot of you out there, you don't think about it. And I'm not gonna blame lack of experience. It's lack of imagination, maybe intelligence. So here's some free, very valuable advice. If you spend 5 years making your business successful, right? And I'm going to take the example of America. Simple, because I'm familiar with America. So in America, the average salary is between $40,000 to $60,000 a year. This is before tax. Depending on which state you live, which state you don't live, federal taxes and everything. Let's say you're going to get $3,000 a month in hand after taxes, right? This is the average salary. Let's suppose you spent 3 years of your life building your business. And then after 3 years, somebody comes to you and says, you know what? Good job, buddy. I'm going to give you $100,000 for your business. And you're like, yes, I sold my business for $100,000. What you don't realize is you spent a lot of your time getting stressed out, working probably long days, really going hard and giving it your all. And at the end of 3 years, if you had a job, you would have made $102,000. You would have made $2,000 more if you just had a normal job. Your valuation exit after all this time, it needs to be ridiculously high. It needs to be higher than what you would have gotten had you just stuck to a normal job. If you can't do that, then you don't really know how to be an entrepreneur. And that's the thing. Everybody says they're an entrepreneur, but it's not about, I feel like I want to be a ballerina, so I feel like I want to be an entrepreneur. You need to have some skills. You need to have absolute emotional control, pragmatic ability, and you have to have an idea that works and works from a very quick time frame. Like it should start making you money within less than 12 months. This is the pragmatic approach to entrepreneurship. Or it should have investors. If it doesn't make money, somebody should come and be like, you're losing money, that's fine, but I'm going to invest a couple of $1 million or a couple of 100 million rubles in it because I see the value. If you're not doing these two things after a couple of years, you need to really reassess what you're doing.
And you said another thing that if you meet people, try to make your time really valuable, and not to lose your time with people who are not involved in your interests. Did I understand you?
This is something I agree with this, but it's very hard to teach. It's almost impossible. Because I'm in a field which introduces me to a lot of interesting people who are involved either in real estate, in finance, in hospitality, it takes a special kind of person to sift out the not serious people from the serious people.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, whether you're entrepreneurs or not, you just suck at it. Like a lot of people just mistake the appearance of success for success. That's a big waste of time. People who are serious have their own ideas. They will give you a firm yes or no. They have their own path they're following. People who are not serious are usually the people who will encourage you. Like they'll give you a lot of encouragement. They'll give you lovely words. But when it comes to the pedal meeting the metal, they have nothing. Their actions amount to nothing. But that's the thing. As entrepreneurs, not just in Russia, but around the world, a lot of you are just emotional. You like the person who lies to you but doesn't give you a cent versus the person who has money and says, you know what, this idea sucks. I'm not going to invest in it. If somebody very successful is telling you your idea sucks, they're either wrong or they're right. But because they're successful and they're at a higher level of success than you are, you should think about why they don't think your idea is valuable. Sometimes they're wrong. Airbnb, a lot of very successful people passed up the opportunity on Airbnb, passed up the opportunity Uber. That's fine. But their failures are very less compared to their successes. So to teach this to people, I don't know, I might have to start charging like $1 million a class for this because this is impossible. You need to be a good judge of character, which is pretty rare.
Okay. We have many stories. I think maybe all over the world has these stories. To start your own business with a partner or alone or with investor or somebody else. The system of splitting business after you started it with a partner. In Russia, we had stories when it was worst and some conflicts could be about killing each other, you know. Can you give an advice how to start partnership and how to split after you started if you want to be splitted? Do you have such experience, or you saw some businesses, maybe family businesses, friendly business with friends, or somebody else? What can you say about this?
I can say the fastest way to ruin a relationship is to start a business with someone.
So that's it.
Like the fastest way to ruin a relationship.
Short answer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially like if you meet people for business,
Yes.
that's a good place to start. But if you're starting a business with family or friends, most of the time what's going to happen is, because they're your family or your friends, unless you have like a rock solid frame, there are going to be conflicts, especially when you start becoming successful. It's a very true nature of the world. It's not just about Russia, it's about everywhere.
Nature of a human.
We're human beings. When money comes in, it changes people. You know, it's easy to be loyal to each other when you're making like, 100,000 rubles a month. Once you start making 10 million rubles a month, then, you start thinking differently. You're like, maybe I don't need this dude. Maybe I don't need that guy. So my advice is, if you want to start a business, start with people who want to start a business. Don't start it with family or friends. Start with people who are literally like, hey, nice to meet you. This is a business relationship. And then we have a personal relationship that comes from this business relationship. So that's a good way to start.
You mean it's better to find some cold relations with some new people who are really looking for the same way with you, and to try to make partnership with them? Do you mean that?
That's one way to do it. Because if you go to events that align with what you want to do in your business, you will meet like-minded people. The second way I would say is, you can start a business with your friends and family, but you have to understand that the risk you are taking here is hurting their feelings and ruining the relationship. You have to be absolutely pragmatic about it. Because, when you're starting a business with somebody that you met for business, you can be very forthright. I don't want to do this. I don't like this. This is not going to happen. So then the other person says, I want to do this. It's going to happen. But because it's a business relationship, they both understand it's a difference in perspective and they compromise. Family and friends, they get emotional. Like, oh, you don't value me anymore, or you don't like me. What happened? We've been friends since kindergarten. A business is not about friendship. It's about financial success. It's a financial transaction. So my advice is, if you're going to get into business with these people, your role should be absolutely clearly defined. I can give you many examples. A good example I can give you, I'm not going to name names, just general example is Apple. Fantastic example. When Apple started, Steve Jobs started Apple. And Steve Jobs, while not a financial genius, was a genius in that he had the gift of seeing what could be developed and created from things that were existing or could exist. What Steve Jobs was not a genius at was the financial aspect. But here's the thing. A lot of people in the world make money. A lot of people have finances. The gift of creativity and foresight is rare. So Steve Jobs started Apple, became successful. Apple kicked him out. He started next, became successful. Apple started failing. Apple had to hire Steve Jobs back fire the people who fired him, buy his company next, and then he came up with the iPhone, the iPod. Like, this is an example of a guy who has a talent, a gift. You can't buy it, you can't train it, you can't study it. It might hurt some of you guys' feelings to hear these things, but there are some individuals in this world. Nikola Tesla, another example. You can't just study your way to Nikola Tesla's level of intellect, you know. So Steve Jobs, if he had this kind of knowledge, he would have said, hey guys, I'm the brains of the organization. I'm going to bring the creativity. I'm going to bring the killer products that will make us huge. You guys bring the money and let's stick to our roles. I'm not going to tell you guys how to bring the money. You don't tell me what product to make. And they would have been fine. So if you can absolutely make it clear that this is the way it is, and if you break this agreement, then the partnership is broken, you'll be much better off. Because the moment they step up, because you clarified your boundaries, like I'm bringing XYZ, you're bringing ABC. If you break this agreement and you start questioning my XYZ, it's over, it's done. There's no emotion involved, it's over. The partnership is over because you broke my boundaries. Establish clear boundaries. Simple.
So you mean that the best partnership could be talent plus finance?
The best, always.
So if somebody talent in finance, they should better to find some artistic people who can be effective in art of this direction of business.
Correct. Because designers, engineers, creators usually, they're not really interested in finance. Because it's fascinating to create something, to design something. It's a creative process as well. Whether you're designing, creating a song, or you're creating a rocket ship to Mars, it is a very time-consuming, mind-intensive process. It's very challenging. It's very fulfilling. They don't really care about the money. It's boring to them. For the financial people, the design, creation of the first stage of a rocket that goes to the moon, that's not really interesting to them. What's interesting to them is how lucrative it'll be, how much investment it can gather, how much money it can make. So if you got two people who are good at what they do and highly disinterested in what the other guy is good at, that's a perfect marriage because each can bring their own expertise and get together. However, I have to say this, in this world that we live in, the financial people always have more power. So if you are going to be the designer, you have to understand at some point of time, the person bringing the money is going to have more sway than you. You have to be open about it. If you're the financial person, again, you have to be understanding that you can't really push too much on the creative people because they are the value of your product.
Yeah.
In simple terms, yes.
What advice can you give to creative people to develop their creative and for finance people to develop their skills and understanding of each other in partnership?
You know, the one advice I give to both that is common is don't go to school. It's a waste of time.
Really?
It's absolute waste of time. Especially if you're creative, right?
Yeah.
All right, if you're like an average person who wants to be a mechanical engineer, yeah, totally go to school. But if you're like a kid who was building microprocessors at the age of 8, don't go to college. It's a waste of your time. You're already way more advanced than them. What you should be doing is immediately after graduating from high school, yes.
You mean college or
University.
University.
Finish your high school, but then the first priority should be get to work in the field that you want. Like if you're that intelligent and gifted, forget this nonsense of university. Just go
And
to
practice.
the people.
Yeah.
Let's suppose you're very gifted architect, right? You're extremely gifted. Go to 20 architects. Maybe 19 will reject you. One will be like, you know what, I'll give you a job at the lowest level. You know, you don't have any degree, but I'll give it to you. But if you have that gift, you will rise up much faster. That 4 or 5, 6 years you will waste in university, you will gain valuable experience and reputation. Same for finance. Like honestly, unless your job is an accountant or your job absolutely requires some financial licensing, okay, go to university. That's fine. But if you just want to learn about finance and get into a financial side of things, you should go and work with people who are financials, even if you're just assisting them in their day-to-day life, just picking up their mail or something like that. Because just being surrounded by that, if you are actually gifted, you will know it. And within those 3 or 4 years, or maybe 6 years of the financial degree, where you are surrounded by other people who don't have any experience, who are not successful, just studying from a book, you'll be surrounded by people who are actually successful, actually doing what you want to do, and they are right in front of you. So you can learn from practical knowledge, from seeing them.
Yes, we discussed this question about how to learn better on practice or in university. And of course, there are some professions like medicine, doctor. You have to get the based skills, based education. And so you mean that entrepreneurship could be got in where, if not to go to the university?
I'll tell you something about
Like,
entrepreneurs.
for example, some exact example. For example, to be a business assistant, to be whom, like,
All those very successful people in our world right now who are living, Mark Zuckerberg, he's the Jewish founder of Facebook, Bill Gates, founder of Microsoft, even Steve Jobs, I guess, they all dropped out of college because they found college not valuable enough. The thing is, most people who are calling themselves entrepreneurs, they're not really entrepreneurs. They're just people who don't want to have a job, and they have some great idea because they've seen some TikTok or something online and they think they can be entrepreneurs. No. Real entrepreneurs have one thing in common: they hate working for other people. This is a rare person. That's an entrepreneur. Because you know what? Their motivation is, I want to be my own boss. It hurts me physically to work for somebody else. They don't want to, even if they have the qualifications and they can get a job, they don't like it. That drive and motivation comes from within. And that drive and motivation makes these people successful because they know, like, I can't work for other people, but I still want to be successful. The only option left for me is try what I need to do to get where I want to go. If you don't have that drive and you just want to be an entrepreneur because you're a rich housewife sitting and bored, or you're a guy who doesn't really want to go and do a boring job in corporate, but you have no idea, you're not going to be successful most of the time. Entrepreneurs, like, if we get the example of a lot of entrepreneurs, they have slept in their offices when they were younger. They have lived in broke apartments, studio apartments, sleeping on the floor. Like a lot of entrepreneurs, Amazon's founder, he started it from his garage. He told a friend of his, this is one of the most influential retail marketplaces in the world, Amazon. He told a friend of his in the 1990s, bro, he said, bro, this thing is going to be worth $100 billion. And his friend laughed at him. But he started it from his parents' garage. He started it from a loan from his family and some other people that he could get it. And he kept at it until he became successful. Like, you really need to have that feeling like, I don't want to work for you. I want to work for me. And I can be hungry. I could be homeless. I could be under extreme stress. But all of that is going to be worth it because I'm just going to keep pushing until I get what I want. That drive is what really sets entrepreneurs apart from average people. So if you don't have that, it's not for you.
So you mean that if some person worked on some company for the long time period and did not feel something like you said, and decided to start business, what do you think? Is it more possible for them, but having experience, or if he had not this kind of hunger from the beginning, it will be not successful way for him? What do you think?
If you don't really have that hunger, but you have some brains, you'll be successful, you just won't be mega successful. There are many people who have worked for 20, 25 years in a job, saved up a bunch of money, then started a business, became more successful. But none of them will become as successful as the guy who just doesn't want to work for somebody else, but wants to work and be successful on his own. I'll give you a simple example. In this world, this is the difference between entrepreneurs who are successful and the reality of these people. Throughout the world, we see a lot of, we see a lot of, this is a social construct of the media. Like, look at this older guy driving a red Ferrari with this young girl, a supermodel next to him. He thinks he's so and so. Like, there's a lot of negative connotations because what you see is like some 50, 60-year-old guy in a red Ferrari with a beautiful girl next to him. And you're like, look at this guy. What you do not see is the 25 to 30 years he spent as a broke guy, as a young guy, not driving a Ferrari, driving a Toyota, maybe married to or not married at all, being single, not partying, not going to clubs, but 20 and 30 years of his life that the average person, you guys are going Friday, let's go to the bar. Saturday, let's go to the club. He didn't go to the club on Fridays and Saturdays. When you were in your 20s and 30s, you went to the club. He didn't. And by the time you retire, you're going to live a normal life. But he spent that time sacrificing for the lifestyle that you see now, where he's in his 50s and 60s and he's driving the sports cars and hanging out with models. Nobody sees that time. They just look at the end result. That's what people do. They look at the end product. They look at the winners who've crossed the finish line, but they don't see the race. They don't see where they started from. So the entrepreneurs are those guys. The entrepreneur is a guy who's in his 20s and 30s who's like, you know what? I'm not going to go to the bar. I'm not going to go to the club. I'm not going to go to Ibiza. I'm not going to go to Thailand and, party with girls. I'm not going to spend money on random designer stuff that I can't afford. The guy who's like, I have the money, but instead of spending it on dumb stuff, I'm going to save it and invest it in my business. Because then by the time you become successful, success is a side effect. There are many people, I get it, and this is not a diss on you guys. This is just reality. We can't all be entrepreneurs. We can't all be leaders. Leadership by definition is rare. So a lot of us like nice cars. The difference between somebody who is successful and somebody who's unsuccessful is unsuccessful or average successful people say, my dream car is, let's suppose, a Lamborghini. I'm going to save up to buy a Lamborghini. First of all, you're never probably going to save up to buy a Lamborghini. It's just financially irresponsible and improbable. Secondly, it's a very stupid and short-sighted view to have. Because you're looking at the Lamborghini as an object. You know who gets the Lamborghini? The guy who drives a Toyota for 20 years, makes so much money that one day he gets up and he says, you know what, I feel like buying a sports car. Let me check what I can afford. Bam, he can afford 20 Lamborghinis. He just forgets about it. And then he's like, oh, you know what? I totally forgot. I'm still driving this Toyota. I can go and buy 20 Lamborghinis. If you're not that dude, right? And that guy never saved for a Lamborghini. He liked it. He would have wanted it. He probably had enough money to buy a Lamborghini at some time, but decided, no, it's not enough. Let me reinvest this to grow. And now he can buy these things without thinking about them. These are the people who are entrepreneurs or successful. Again, these are mindsets, guys. So if your audience is listening to this, if you're not thinking like this and you're thinking the other way, you might need to review your thinking and see if you can actually understand these things.
I want to ask you about relations between investors and startup creators. In United States, it's actually a good developed thing when you create a startup and you can attract some investitions. There are some platforms for this, and people understand there are many investors who are searching the startups and trying to support them to be like business angels, and and Russia is not so developed in this, and it's really so. What do you think? Should we develop these kind of relations, or there is some other way, or it could be some other way, or it's the only way? What do you think about that? Because actually it's interesting how to develop the middle class in Russia, entrepreneurs and new projects, because especially now when actually it started to be interesting to invest in Russia, and some amount of money started to stay in Russia, you know. So this money should be invested not only in real estate market, but also have to be developed production business and some new projects. What do you think about this?
So this is a multi-part question. First of all, I'll tell you a lot of the things that as Americans we are sold in the media about, oh, this investor got $100 million series. It's nonsense. It's all fake. These are low probability outcomes marketed as high probability. Like every other American wants to be a YouTube star or a musician or a rapper. Every girl wants to be like a movie actress or some social media influencer. The reality is, this is all marketing that only enriches the people doing the marketing and running these platforms. Because this is a very, very, very low probability, very high risk outcome. I live in Los Angeles. Los Angeles is littered with 50-year-old actors and actresses who came to Los Angeles at 18 and they've been working as waiters for 30 years. If you've been working as a waiter for 30 years, waiting for your break in Hollywood, guess what? You're a failure. You should have realized this after 10 years and been like, you know what? I gave it my best shot. Let me go back home and do what I'm actually good at and have somewhat of a normal life. So, angel investors, the answer to your question is this. Angel investors, frankly speaking, are your family, your friends, just rare individuals who invest at the beginning of your business when nobody is giving you any money. This is usually your family and friends. Or maybe somebody that you know who's like, you know what, if I lose $50,000, $100,000, it's fine. You know, I can afford to. I like this guy. Or I think the idea has merit. So angel investors usually can be ignored. If you hear about some angel investor investing a couple of $1 million or a big amount, that's not an angel investor. That's an existing network that they had that they are marketing as an angel investor. This is the reality. In America, Russia, anywhere. America is, we have made an art of lying through marketing since the 1960s. It's like you have to get through the nonsense. Second round of funding, this is the Series A funding round, is when you had the investments or you put your own money in, you ran your business, it's making money, you are net flow positive, and people are interested because they see a value proposition in your business. That is the time where the handshakes that you did, your reputation, the meetings that you did with people, that blew up, and some bigger people who do not know you come to you, ask you some questions, and then ask you, are you looking for funding? And then they get together, call a couple of their friends. That's literally it, Series A funding. Call a couple of their friends. Wealthy people know wealthy people. And they decide, you know what? Oh, you like this project? Why do you like it? Oh, I like it XYZ. You're a successful guy. I'm a successful guy. I trust your judgment. How much are you putting in? $1 million? I'll put in 2. That's Series A funding. Once you get a good Series A funding, not only have you now got a network of wealthy people who are investing, you have a reputation. Like, you built your business, it's viable. Wealthy people who are smart have invested, so they think it's viable. So the next round becomes very easy because now you've established a reputation that this is going to be successful. They're going to go. And then you IPO where the average person can buy your stock or whatever. In Russia, if you want to replicate this, again, you have to do what I said in the beginning. You have to go out and talk to people. Look, angel investors, honestly, if you're thinking people are just going to invest when you have nothing happening, they're going to invest a bunch of money in your idea because they like you, it's very low probability. Angel investors is basically your friends, your family, maybe your extended network, gambling that whatever little amount they can give you is going to make them rich, but basically giving out, like, here you go, man, just take it and shut up and hope it works out. So I would recommend another way of raising funds from the public. In America, we have come up with places like GoFundMe. So GoFundMe is a platform along with multiple others where you have an idea, you sketch it out, maybe you make a couple of promo videos. Maybe let's suppose, for example, you want to start a skateboard that is electric skateboard that just goes and stops for like 100 miles. As an example, right? You make a nice video, so you have to spend some money, right? You make a nice video, you explain like, hey, I'm Dimitri, I want to make an electric skateboard, this is how much the project will cost, we are trying to raise this money, everybody who invests will get, this and this, maybe some shares, or maybe you will get like first buyer of the skateboard. And these sites help average people invest in absolutely new entrepreneurial ideas. So I don't know if you have this in Russia, but if you don't, this would be a fantastic platform, because not only does the platform make a lot of money, but this has led to a lot of very successful startups. Just people who had good ideas, not a lot of money. They put up a nice project, explained it, put up a nice video. People were like, you know what? I'll invest in you. Because let's suppose you need $1 million to start your idea. Going to someone and asking for 100 million rubles, I'm guessing, is going to be hard. But if there are 1 million people who see your ad, they can invest 100 rubles. It's nothing. If 100,000 people see your ad,
crowdfunding.
Correct. They can crowdfunding. They can invest 1,000 rubles. Maybe 10,000 people see your ad. They can invest 10,000. That's not a big amount for them, but it just adds up, and bam, there you are. Now you are funded. Now you have enough money. Now you can actually develop your product, pay yourself, and see if it works. And that gives you an absolutely fantastic exposure, and it gets you interested to the Series A guys, because they see that people are interested in this product. So they're interested in the product, they paid for it. If you can make it happen, deliver successfully, then they'll come and invest with you. So that would be my recommendation. You have to make it easy for average Russians to be able to support entrepreneurs. That's it.
Have you seen some retail networks, Russian brands? What can you say about them? How it works from your side? Have you seen something?
I don't understand by retail networks.
I mean
Russian
that
brands?
For example, Russian brand, it's like popular in United States, Walmart. We have something the same, like Пятерочка, Magnet.
Right. Yes.
This kind of chains. Have you visited these shops, and what can you say about this regular retail, maybe clothes shops? And I'm speaking about continue to speak about business in Russia. How it works? How do you see it works? What mistakes? Maybe you saw something. Maybe you can advise, because you saw different countries and different models of working. Maybe you will share some idea to how to make it more effective in finance, in marketing, or something like this.
Well, you named a couple of supermarkets. I'm not gonna name any brands because I'm not getting paid for sponsoring you guys. This stuff is not free. But as for the supermarkets, I think they're pretty good. The only thing that we have, and I don't think it's a good thing, like you said, Walmart, we've got Safeway. If you go to the Midwest, we've got King Super. These are big brands. But the bigger the brand, right, the bigger the supermarket, the lesser the quality of the food that you're getting. Because what happens is, as a huge brand, I can operate at a loss for so long that I can cut my prices below the average mom and pop and small business owners who are smaller, who can't operate at a loss. They have to feed their family. But they are run out of business, and then I can dictate to the suppliers that the quality of the food is reduced. So for me, personally, food and all these things, I don't think you should emulate our model, because we have some of the most unhealthy foods in the world. As Americans, we are unhealthy. We are morbidly obese. We are diabetic. Everybody keeps giving all sorts of excuses for it. And, you're not fat, you're just big. No, you're just fat. The problem is that even the food that we are having is terrible. And it became terrible because the locally sourced businesses were shut down. So we're going to keep that aside. Because your supermarkets right now, they're fine. They're doing absolutely fine. Everybody needs to eat. that business is going nowhere. They're professional, they're well stocked, they got everything you could need. So it's nothing, it's just going pretty well. There's nothing that I can say could be better. Maybe they could make them bigger, but again, Russia has some beautiful architecture. You can't really make a Walmart in the middle of Moscow because it's got beautiful architecture, right? For other stores, I would say the service needs a little bit more customer-facing improvement.
Mm-hmm.
What that means is the stores are fantastic, the inventory is great. Some of the places I've been to here, whether it's clothing, it's fragrances, electronics, it's fantastic. Some of the stuff I've seen in Russia is just mind-blowing. And I'm very happy to be shopping here, by the way. I'm super happy. You guys have some great designers. So, but the customer-facing service is a little lacking because I'm guessing it's a part of Slavic culture. I'm not familiar with the history of Russia. Maybe it's a part of being a very reserved people because, it's a cold place. Maybe it's Soviet times, whatever. But if you really want to, as an entrepreneur, jack up your sales, you need to figure out who your target market is. And then your salespeople and your staff and your organization needs to know how to talk to them. For example, if you're selling luxury goods,
Yeah.
you can't sit in the shop and when somebody comes into your store, be like, what do you want? Dude, that's a luxury good. The guy who's walking in might want to buy the whole store. But if you say one wrong thing incorrectly, the tonality is wrong, he'll be like, you know what? I don't need to deal with you, you peasant, and I'm going to never buy anything from you. Maybe you lost hundreds of millions of rubles in sales.
Yeah.
On the flip side,
I agree.
Right? On the flip side, if you're selling something to teenagers, you can't have people suited up, looking grumpy, like, hey, what do you want? It's a teenager clothing branded store. You need to have people working there who understands how to communicate to them.
More oriented.
Yes.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. It's not about Russia. It's about America as well. Look, I understand you guys. Retail is not a great job. You need to be talking to people. You need to be facing people, dealing with a lot of nonsense. But here's the thing, right? As the business person, you have to understand your employee as the store manager, salesperson, whatever floor person, they are representing you. This is not the time for them to show their personality, show their attitude. Like, I don't need this. Like, if you are working that job and if you as an owner are hiring them, they need to be trained. Like, hey, this is the way you behave. If you don't, you're fired. If you have a bad day, don't bring it to work. If you're having a bad day, stay home. And as an employee, again, this is a free country. You don't have to join the job. If you go to the job and you're like, it's a great store, but I hate this work, don't join it. Because you're miserable. You're going to make the store suffer. And you're basically going to be fired or you're going to quit anyway. So you need to figure out. The owners know what I'm talking about, but this is more for the common people. Look, guys, whatever you see online, right? YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Rutu, Wiki, this is all glorified stuff. Nobody posts on Instagram they're getting up at 6 a.m., look like, trash, and they're eating their cereal in a dirty room. Nobody posts that picture on Instagram. Everybody posts edited photos. But if you think that just because you see some edited photos and you put some edited photos and you got some likes, you deserve a better lifestyle than everybody else around you, you're living in a false reality.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have the value that you think you have and you do not get that value within 4 or 5 years of becoming an adult, you need to be really practical. I've met many people who waste their 20s and 30s trying to be something they will never be. And then they're 40 and they have to work at a grocery store. Don't do that.
Actually, also all the time surprising why people, especially in premium level services, have such a strange behavior. For example, for my people in my company, I always say one thing: if you will be friendly and positive oriented to people, your life will change. Your personal life will change. Your mind will change, and it's actually good for you, not for customer which you serve. it's really good for you. And if you was lucky to be in a company which has a premium service with a high level of customer oriented service, it's a luck for you to change yourself, because when you will start to be, it's like an LP in psychology. You trying to be friendly, you trying to be happy, even if you're not. If you're trying to look happy, if you're trying to behave, to look wealthy, to behave kind, you you are go you became like this. You became this happy, lucky, and wealthy person. It's a fantastic thing, and it works actually. I would recommend to all entrepreneurs who train their teams to explain them that.
I agree. I think for most people, this should work. They should understand. Like, you have to understand where you are in life. You can't expect to be treated like a princess if you are literally a pauper. Like, it's not gonna happen. Just also, I would say this: if someone gets an opportunity and they can't do these things, there are some people who are like, I can't be fake happy. I tried it. I can't do it.
Yeah.
Hey man, you need to be honest. If you want to work in a customer facing role which pays well, but you hate people, it's not for you. Just become a gardener. You'll make a lot less money, but you'll be a lot happier. Maybe you'll be successful at being a gardener. It's one of the harsh realities of life you have to accept. I'll give you a fascinating example and a funny example. This, in the United States, we see this all the time. I saw this in a Rolls Royce showroom, but Ferrari, Lamborghini are the same. So if you go to a Toyota showroom, so Toyota is a fantastic, very reliable car company, catering mostly to middle class people, but they have some expensive cars. The Lexus is like luxurious version of Toyota. So if you go to a Toyota showroom and you say, most of the time, if you say, you just dress very normally, just normally, and you go and you're like, I'd like to try out a Lexus, the most expensive Lexus that you have. They'll ask you 1,000 questions. They'll be like, we don't want to give it to you. We don't have it available. We want to keep the miles low. I get it. The people who buy that want low miles. If you go to a Ferrari showroom, a Rolls Royce showroom, a Lamborghini showroom, right? You could be dressed in shorts and flip flops and a t-shirt, right? And you're like, you know what? I want to try like this Ferrari. Porsche, fantastic company for this. I want to try your car. They'd be like, which one? Which color would you like? The 4-door or the 2-door, the convertible? Let's go for a drive. I know a nice place. These guys understand that whoever is coming here, first of all, buying a Ferrari or a Lamborghini for people who are very successful, it's not a huge event. It's literally like, some people are bored. They're like, man, I'm bored. I got 11 Ferraris. I don't have a blue one. I'm going to go and, hey, do you have a blue Ferrari? All right, I'm going to buy it. It's nothing special for them. They're going to want to dress up to go to a Ferrari showroom. There are well-dressed people who dress well. I dress well for myself. I don't need to, right?
Yeah.
But they understand that even the person who doesn't have money, if you treat them well, they may in the future have money and they'll remember it. When that guy becomes successful, he'll remember. When he can buy 100 Lexuses or one Ferrari, he'll be like, you know what? These guys were idiots to me.
It's a marketing, actually.
Yes, it's a human thing. These guys were idiots. I'm not going to buy a Lexus. I'm going to buy a Ferrari. Because those guys treated me well. They didn't ask me 20,000 questions. Many salespeople, I have friends in this industry who sell these cars. Most relaxed people that you will find are in extremely high-end premium car dealerships. They're very happy. It's a fun place to be. Their clients are very relaxed. And they're the most pleasant people you deal with. The most stressed out people you deal with, Toyota, Ford, all these like mid-level cars.
That's why I recommend to my customers in my advertising business to show their premium brands even to the youth. And I'm explaining that that youth you showed your product will dream about your product because you came them first. And if your competitors will come when they will grow up and earn money, they will go to their dreams. And who was the first?
Correct. And who was nice, who was
Yes.
polite to them.
Yeah, of course. Who was
Because
friendly?
at the higher level, a $10,000-$20,000 difference doesn't really make much of a difference. It might make to the salesperson, but it's not doesn't make to the buyer. And the buyer thinks, you know what? It doesn't make a difference to me, but I'm gonna go to the guy I like, who was nice. Simple.
So I'm totally agree with you that customers-oriented service should be developed in Russia because it's really an important thing. Okay, maybe it's enough to talk about business. Let's talk about music because I presented you as an entrepreneur and musician, but we didn't speak about music yet. And what kind of music do you make, and what's your style? What do you do in music?
I would say my style is a mix of classic plus hip hop plus funk. So I sing, but what I really like to do is I tried my hand at producing. I used to play the piano as a child. But what I realized is the same kind of thought process that I have in business came to music. If I'm good at singing and I can bring something really special to that, then I should leave the production to people who are really good at that. And we should come together and make something,
Yeah.
together. So I've got an album out, a couple of singles out. It's on my Instagram. I'm pretty sure you can drop some link. It's WorldWayde. And I'm still developing that style. But even with music, as with everything else, I'm giving myself some time. I like it, but I'm in a very awkward position as a musician that most musicians are broke. That's a great motivator. If you don't have anything going on in your life, you don't have any money, you're super motivated to be successful. But if you're already successful, it gets a little less motivating.
Okay. So it's some kind of hobby for you.
It is a passion.
Yeah.
But then at some point, after finding my sound, after polishing it, finishing it, I'm going to release more music. But I also understand the industry, and the industry is again financial. And the worst thing that you can do in the art industry, whether it's music or movies, is be successful before you become big. That's like absolutely terrible because the whole industry is designed on you have the talent, we have the money. So we're going to do what's good for our money. You just do what's good for your talent. So if you have talent and money, they don't know what to do with you. So for me, I would say I'm still working on my sound. I've got a very nice team. I've got very nice studios in Vegas that I like to work with, Miami, Denver, fantastic studios, LA. I haven't found anything in Russia if I visit here. But I have my team. I have my mixing guys, my recording guys. I have guys that I like to work with. I'm constantly finding new musical acts. And because I stayed in Vegas for some time, there are also some fantastic musical outfits that, they're good. They made a good career out of it, but they have not become as big as they could be. It's just, it is what it is. Sometimes you're very gifted, but you're just not going to be like a humongous superstar. So for me, my focus is also to reach out to them and see if we can do something together, which is mostly in, again, like the funk, hip hop, somewhat classical music areas. So, yeah.
Again, about business in music. it's
It is
it's the
what it
format
is.
of our
Look, with music, the music does the talking. You
Yeah,
can't really
okay.
talk too much about it.
So not so long ago, music industry was controlled by huge labels and investors like this. So some of labels was the part of huge corporations like Sony or something like this. And now situation changed a little bit because social media appeared. What can you say about these changes? And for example, in Russia, we know several really big stars who created themselves without record label or investor. just because they started to be popular in internet,
Right.
and now they belong to themselves and really really like popular people with without contract with label, you know. What do you think about this?
I think it's a new way of doing things, but I'll say there is a finer distinction here. So the labels throughout history have had their own business process that they sign you to a contract, they take a cut of majority of your royalties, cut of your tours and everything. They're being replaced by streaming services and social media. But the switch that has happened now is, for now, because the record label industry is so well established and they have their way of doing things, the streaming services are new on the block. They are getting into the same business. They're trying to take over the same revenue streams. For now, it's great for artists because artists get a way to push out our music, push out our creativity without having to go through record label. We are given a lot more freedom. But at the end of the day, unless social media itself is decentralized, that means nobody can really control or stop it. What's going to happen is that these big streaming platforms, these social media companies are just going to, in the next 10, 20 years, slowly take over from where the record labels left off. That's what's going to happen. So this is a good period to be in there, but it's going to end because it's not some revolution. Because, like I said, artists, they're not really like the brightest bunch in the world. Majority of artists. Are there some artists that are very, very smart and intelligent? Sure. But, exceptions don't make the rules. So it's a good time. If you have the following, you have the talent, you have the opportunity, I would do something like that. I'm making music as an example because I like it. And since I was a child, I had a principle that I've not heard anybody else. It was just inborn. I don't want to make my music make me money initially because that just kills your creativity. If you depend on your art to make you money, then you will be dependent on those who pay you for your art, and they will dictate what your art is.
Exactly.
So if you want to make your art, you got to be financially independent. And if you are really gifted, you will blow up. But that means you can't have just random people blown on radio 24/7 and they became stars. That means you need to have the quality of a star to actually become that. So it, cuts out a lot of these people. But it's a good time to be this.
What's your favorite artist in the world?
Me.
But
But,
for all artists,
I mean-
somebody could be like.
I mean, honestly, I
spirit-
listen to so many genres and I listen to so many genres. For example, if I was to say my favorite artist by genre specific, I would say American classic music from the 50s and the 40s, right? I would say my favorite artist would be Frank Sinatra, then Dean Martin, then I would also say in that same period, Bing Crosby. It's a very different style of music. In the modern times, I would say I'm a big fan of drum and bass. So Pendulum, it's an Australian band which turned into Knife Party. Then if you say more like 60s, 70s classic rock, I would be a fan of The Doors. I would be a fan of the Eagles, some of their work. In modern music, I don't really want to talk about it right now. Maybe in a couple of years, if when I get there. But I would also say I'm kind of tuned out by a lot of the music coming out now because it's become very soulless. It's like finding a needle in a haystack. Because research has proven that most music that is most popular uses just 4 chords. So if you understand that, you can just churn out absolute nonsense with those 4 chords again and again. And I've noticed this as a human tendency. Let's suppose you really hate a song, right? And I'm talking like you hate this song. But it plays on the radio every single day when you're driving from your home to your work and from work to your home. And you listen to that song 365 days in a year, 2 times a day. You know what will happen on like the 30th day? you'll be like, it's not that bad. On the 60th day, you'll start kind of singing it. On the 90th day, you'll know the whole song.
Because the music has a
It has
psychological thing.
it has ingrained
yes.
it has literally ingrained itself in your neural pathways. So your brain is like this. If it listens to something and does something repeatedly, it makes it literally easier to
That's
keep
how
doing
it
it.
works, yes.
That's how people become addicted to alcohol. That's how people become addicted to gambling, drugs. This is how it works. So I've seen how these things are manufactured.
So bad music is something like like drugs.
Pretty much,
Yeah.
like for example, I'm a huge fan of Baroque music. My favorites would be Vivaldi, Albinoni. In classical music, I would say Mozart, Chopin. Not a huge fan of Beethoven. He's got some good music, but not mine. But that's the thing about what people truly like. Most people like what they're told to like. Most people, I judge people based on if they like classical music or not, because what I've realized is to like classical music, you need to have a minimum level of intelligence to understand and appreciate the harmony. It's very calming, it's very soothing, it's very harmonious. Below a certain, I'm a huge believer in this, by the way, below a certain IQ level, it just hurts people. Like, it hurts them mentally, auditory, and physically, because it's like too calm, too harmonious. They need some chaos, they need some discordant. So, like I said, in a different spot. And the one lifetime is not enough for what I want
Do
to
you
do.
know Russian composers of classic music?
Tchaikovsky is one of my favorite.
Shostakovich.
Yes. Also, I would have to listen to more, but Russian classical music. Now, here's the thing: in classical music, you have the classical, Baroque, and Romance. I'm a big fan of Baroque. In Baroque, I have not really listened to a lot of Russian composers. Baroque is mainly a French and Italian style. And if I come across some Russian ones, I'll definitely give them a listen. But
And what about modern musicians? Do you know somebody from Russia? Have you heard some songs?
I've heard some very funny songs that I have no idea what they say, but they're very catchy. I heard some like 6 or 7 years ago. I think it's a Russian song that's like dance with your elbows. It's like very cool trap style. It's like some dude is singing about dancing with your elbows or something. It was very, very fun.
So you don't know the name?
No, I don't know the name. But I could probably, like, if I heard it, I'd totally.
Have you heard some one name of Russian artist? Have you heard somebody? The time you spend in Russia, have you heard some Russian artists here?
Not particularly, because I don't understand the language. And as a musician since a child, I go more on the music than the lyrics, even in English, by the way. I haven't really heard anything that made me go like, wow, who is that? Like, it's just not happened. So I'm pretty bad at this.
What about movies? Have you seen some?
Oh yes,
Russian
I've seen some Russian movies.
What
Not the
you-
modern one. Well, actually, I've seen 2, 3 modern ones. I've seen a lot of your Soviet era movies. I've seen a lot of Skazki, which is like stories for kids, for English speaking people.
Why did you
Because
explore
it's YouTube and it's easy
Ah,
way to
yeah,
learn
YouTube.
Russian. You just
okay.
keep listening to them.
Okay.
I've seen the three Bogatyr cartoons. I like them. They're good. They're good cartoons.
So you without translation?
It helps me. I would say my Russian level is maybe, I don't know. I want to say 30%, but I think it's more like 7 to 12%. But it's like I can kind of get it because I keep playing them and it's easy to understand. I would say I did see one modern movie in Russia. Well, I saw a couple. One was very funny. It was the Russian Avengers, where you had this guy who had like electricity and this girl who was, I don't know what her power was. Then this guy with long hair with swords. It was very funny.
A Russian movie?
Russian Avengers. It was funny, man. Like, it's kind of cringy.
Can't recognize it.
All right.
Maybe.
So they were all superheroes or stuff. But I did see a couple of movies, and there was one I saw which was fantastic, produced by, I think, an American studio. It was about this dude in 19th century whose very good at duels. He never loses a duel. I don't know if you know this movie. Very good looking actor. I don't know who he is. He looks
Russian
like,
actor.
yeah, he looks like an Irish actor. He looks like Colin Farrell, the Irish actor, but he's Russian. It's a fantastic movie. The production was amazing. Cinematography, fantastic. Uh, Actors and actresses, gorgeous. And the story was fascinating. This like 19th century duelist never loses a duel. Turns out he was almost killed by a political opponent and thrown in some island where some shaman gave him this gift of he can't be killed and he'll win all the duels. I don't know what it's called. I'm pretty sure somebody knows what I'm talking about. Fantastic. That movie, wow. Blew my mind. I was like, yeah.
Let's talk about friendship.
All right.
Do you already have some friends here in Russia?
I would say I am friendly with some people here, yes.
So I mean that they become your friends, or it's just simple relations.
I mean, for me, I'm a little bit different because friendship means to me knowing somebody over a longer period of time, going through some stuff together, as a man, masculine virtue, loyalty, reliability, these are big things. So I haven't really had any challenging experiences here to have those relationships be tested like that. But I've had some people who are friendly here. I'll definitely say Russian people are very friendly, very hospitable. Not at all what we see in the movies. In fact, you guys are a lot more genuine than we are in the big cities in the States, at least. Like, I think a lot of Americans here would agree with me that the epidemic of loneliness in the bigger cities in the United States is huge because, the culture has been destroyed since the 60s. Nobody talks to their families. Families are broken apart. Father's not in the house. Nobody cares about their siblings. You go to a new city, people are very transactional. In Russia, it's much more normal. Everybody's family oriented. You meet some nice people, they're your friends. They're like, hey, let's go get some dinner. Let's go out. It's very nice. It's like one of the biggest factors in a long and healthy life is having a good social circle.
Yeah, but I can say that there are difference between big cities and small cities. Big cities also have this kind of problems of loneliness, and it's I think that it's a problem of big cities, like
In general, yes.
so like society, well, big city, it's hard way.
I think, but Russians in general, like most Europeans, you're very social. Like Russians make an effort to get other people to come and interact. Just like some events, some cultural events, some parties, some dinners. It's a lot more organic here. You got a lot of Telegram groups, you've got a lot of your groups. Even if you're new to a city, you can actually go to events, meet people, actually start building a network. Whereas of course, it might be different in the Midwest and other, America is not California for sure. It's not Los Angeles. But we don't really have that much of an organic, we have events which are very activity focused. So, we're all going to go here and do this. So you can meet people who have similar interests, but it's not just like, let's all meet and have some nice dinner, drinks, tea, and talk. That doesn't really happen. Do you guys have that down on lock? Again, 1,000 years versus 500 years. So.
I remembered the question I wanted to ask. Can you recommend some special books for entrepreneurs in Russia that should be read? Maybe not only to entrepreneurs, maybe people in common.
I'm not gonna refer any entrepreneurship books because I don't read these kind of books. A lot of them is useless to me. I already know most of the stuff they tell you. And secondly, I'm not getting paid to promote a lot of these dudes. But if I was to recommend some books to read to people in general, I would say, depending on whether it's fiction or non-fiction, you know what? A lot of people would benefit greatly from reading the autobiography of somebody they admire. or the biography. And I would recommend reading the biographies of great men from the past, not the present, from the past. Because you can learn a lot about successful men and how they became successful by the way they describe their life. There have been a lot of world leaders in the past who were physically impaired. There were a lot of scientists in the past who were called mentally deficient. There were a lot of very, very successful generals in the past who were weak, sickly kids. There are a lot of successful leaders of countries that were very weak men as children, and they became successful. So reading about these people that you admire will actually help you understand them a lot more than just what the media or the news tells you. And secondly, for Russians, I would 100% say, please read your history. I would encourage every Russian to read their history. I would encourage everybody in every country to read their history. Forget about this world history that you read in school. It's all good and fine and dandy. Read about your people, especially Russians. It is appalling to me as an American because, again, remember what we see in the movies in America versus the reality is fascinating and shockingly different. It really made me curious about why we have such a huge problem with you. Because never in my life in America have I ever been approached by a Russian and had a bad interaction. It just doesn't happen. Like no Russian has ever done anything to me in America ever. Even outside, most Russians that I meet are pretty normal people. So when I came here, I realized something that on our end, we don't know how you guys are. You guys are pretty nice, normal people, actually. And on your end, Russians don't know their own history. Like they just don't. It's fascinating. A lot of young Russians think Russia started in 1990, whatever. They don't understand. This started in like the 9th century with, I believe it was Eric the First, or is it Rurik the First?
It's not 9th century.
No, what century is it?
It's much, much earlier.
Much earlier.
Yeah.
There you go. See, I'm not Russian, so you can excuse me for not being. But you have to read your history.
Yeah, right.
If you're not interested in your history, well, then you're not going to be able to understand what's going on in the world. Read about your history, read about your culture, read about your kings.
We have a saying that people who doesn't know their history doesn't have future.
Correct. Because without their history, how do you know where your parents and their parents and your came from? How do you know where you came from, where your culture came from, where your land, how you came to that land, why you like the things you like? Hey, Russians like salted fish. On the beach. Why do you like salted fish? That's fascinating things. Read about your history. It'll help you a lot, understand a lot of things.
Do you know some classic Russian authors?
Yes.
Or books?
Yes.
Whom do you know? Have you read some?
Dostoevsky and Tolstoy.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, they are actually the most popular.
I'll tell you something. Though.
Have you read them?
Yes. I understand why they write such huge poems and essays. Because when you're sitting in a depressing city in winter for 6 months with nothing to do except drink vodka and it's bloody cold and it's depressing, you start thinking about stuff. And I'll tell you something. This is fascinating to me because I've done some research on this. The number one thing that affects your mental health is your hormones. And during winter, the number one thing that affects your hormones is the lack of vitamin D. When your vitamin D goes down, this is proven by your own research in European countries, especially Russia, Norway, Sweden, Scandinavia, UK. When your vitamin D levels go down, your estrogen level as men and women go down. Testosterone goes down. When your testosterone, estrogen goes down, guess what? You start feeling a little more depressed and negative. This is not you don't need a degree in psychology. This is one of the biggest things in the world that people are not told. Like all these life-changing experiences people are having, dude, just fix your hormone, then you'll be fine. So a lot of these guys that I read, Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, they have these long-winded diatribes, which are nice, which makes sense. But I don't credit them with their intellect as much as like bro, I know you were really depressed and you were kind of bored and you had nothing to do. So you were like, let me write this 3,000 page tome that just translates to, I don't really know what's going on, but I'm going to give it my best shot. And boom, I'm successful. I
So you
remember.
mean that these books are a little bit depressive or really depressive?
No. They have some very good messages, but they're too long winded. There's just too much stuff that is unnecessary. Like I've been reading since I was 3. I'm an exceptional person in this category. I graduated high school when I was 13. I've read a lot of authors from a lot of countries. And the thing about Russian authors is they have very nice stories and sometimes the message is nice, but they just go on too long. And I'll tell you something. My 2 favorite authors who have the same problem are also, they're not Russian, they're Jewish, but they're Russian Jewish people. Isaac Asimov and Ayn Rand. Now, Ayn Rand has written some great books. But,
Long.
through those books, I'm like, I get what you're saying, sweetheart. I get it. But you don't need to go for the next 15 pages on the same goddamn theme. I've gotten it already. So I think it's just the climate that just makes them really verbose because they have nothing else to do. They're like, let me just really hammer home the point. I remember reading this one book, The Idiot, I think it's called.
It's Dostoevsky.
Yes. Wow. What this book, I can't even describe. It was a huge waste of my time reading that book, honestly speaking. Like, I was mad at Dostoevsky. I was like, dude, you just made me waste my time. The only thing I got that was useful from that book was he has a nice way of describing Russian society. So that was nice. The way society is, the etiquette, the social relationships, all that. But the overall story, it was just like, it just went nowhere. It just annoyed me. Like, this story went nowhere. And it just ended. It's like that when you're trying to eat a meal and you're really waiting for like something delicious to come and there's nothing that comes and the meal just over and they're like, here's your check, now get out. That's how I felt.
Maybe you should read it one more time later.
I think I've had enough. Maybe I need to be
Maybe
drunk.
there are
Maybe I need to drink vodka before I read.
in the winter evening
In the winter evening.
in January.
Wow, what a work
or
of art.
February with caviar. Okay, Kristen, thank you for the great conversation. I appreciate your time. Was glad to meet you here, and maybe some few words to our audience to recommend something useful.
It was a pleasure being here. Thank you as well for having me. I would say to your audience, guys, you guys are lovely. You have a very long and storied history. Beautiful people, beautiful culture. Please read about your own history. Get to know your culture. Have some pride in yourself. And please understand that most of us Americans have no idea about you guys. Like, we have no idea who you guys are, how you are. And if you meet some Americans who have some misconceptions about you, please be kind to us. If you meet some Americans who have very bad Russian, please, prostice binya, izvinite. But please try to understand that we get really easily scared if you don't smile all the time. So, yeah, that's about it. It's been a pleasure being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.